The town of Skara slumbered beneath a perpetual veil of grey. The wind howled like a banshee, whipping through the cobblestone streets. Snow, relentless and unforgiving, painted the landscape a stark white. In this desolate corner of the world, Hendrik bore the weight of a grim title, the town executioner. He resided in a small, secluded cottage on the outskirts of Skara, its stone walls echoing with the silence of his solitude. Hendrik was a man of few words, his face etched with the harsh realities he had witnessed. His eyes, the color of the stormy sea, held a depth that spoke of countless unspoken stories. His hands, calloused and strong, were instruments of both life and death. Hendrik was a man of contradictions, a living testament to the duality of human nature. Skara was a town steeped in a peculiar tranquility. Its inhabitants, hardened by the unforgiving climate, were a stoic and reserved people. They went about their daily lives with a quiet determination, their faces etched with the hardships they had endured. The town square, usually the heart of any community, stood eerily deserted for most of the year. The biting wind discouraged idle chatter, and the ever-present threat of snowstorms kept people confined to their homes. For generations, Skara had been a place of peace. The townsfolk, bound by a shared history and a deep respect for tradition, lived in relative harmony. Disputes were settled amicably, and crime was almost unheard of. Hendrik, despite his grim profession, found a strange solace in the town's tranquility. One particularly harsh winter, the silence of Skara was shattered by an unexpected arrival. Lord Kristoff, the ruler of the province, arrived at the town gates, his carriage leaving a trail of disturbed snow in its wake. Lord Kristoff was a man of imposing stature and stern countenance. He ruled with an iron fist, his judgments swift and often harsh.
Simon, the town teacher and a man beloved by all, is to be executed for a crime so heinous it remains unspoken.
The weight of the pronouncement settled over the hall, heavy and suffocating. The news of Simon's impending execution spread through Skara like wildfire. Disbelief and outrage rippled through the community. Simon, a gentle and erudite man, was a pillar of their society. He was the one who taught their children, who shared his wisdom and kindness with everyone he met. Hendrik, bound by his duty and his oath to Lord Kristoff, was tasked with the execution. The weight of this burden, heavier than any he had borne before, pressed down on him. As he prepared for the execution, a seed of doubt began to blossom in Hendrik's heart. He had always believed in the sanctity of the law, in the necessity of his role as executioner. But Simon's case was different. The accusations against him seemed to lack any credible evidence, and the severity of the punishment felt disproportionate to the alleged crime. He resolved to uncover the truth, even if it meant defying the very laws he was sworn to uphold. The day of the execution dawned, cold and unforgiving, mirroring the grim task at hand. The townsfolk, their faces etched with a mixture of sorrow and anger, gathered in the town square, their breaths forming fleeting clouds in the frigid air. The gallows, a stark silhouette against the grey sky, stood as a grim reminder of the power of life and death.
The raven? Beware the shadow of the raven.
Simon, his usually vibrant eyes now clouded with a deep sadness, faced his fate with quiet dignity. He maintained his innocence, his words echoing in the hushed square, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. Lord Kristoff, his face an impassive mask, remained unmoved. As Hendrik prepared to carry out the sentence, Simon leaned close, his voice a raspy whisper. These cryptic words, uttered in the face of death, struck a chord deep within Hendrik. And then, with a sickening thud, Simon's life was extinguished. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the muffled sobs of the townsfolk. Johann's voice, faint yet insistent, whispered of a dark secret, a curse that had plagued their family for generations.
The entity, it is drawn to death, to the despair and sorrow that follows in its wake. It feeds on the life force of those it deems unworthy, using its power to influence events and orchestrate their demise. And the executioner, the one who carries out its will, is its instrument, bound to serve its whims.
Hendrik, his mind reeling from this revelation, was forced to confront the horrifying truth of his lineage. The executioner wasn't a bringer of justice, but a pawn in a much larger, more sinister game. His ancestors, bound by the Pact, had been forced to play their part in this macabre charade, their lives intertwined with the entity's dark machinations. He was not a dispenser of justice, but a puppet, dancing to the tune of a malevolent force. Driven by a burning need to uncover the truth, Hendrik began to investigate his family's past. He delved into the dusty archives beneath the town hall, poring over ancient tomes and crumbling scrolls. He sought out the town's elders, their memories long and filled with whispers of forgotten lore. His search led him to the old cemetery on the outskirts of Skara, a place shrouded in perpetual twilight beneath the boughs of ancient yew trees. The air hung heavy with the scent of decay and the mournful cries of ravens circling overhead. It was here, amidst the crumbling headstones and overgrown graves, that he found the entrance to the family crypt. The crypt, long sealed and forgotten, was a place of palpable darkness. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and the musty odor of decay. He knew that he was treading on forbidden ground, venturing into a place where darkness reigned supreme. In the depths of the crypt, amidst the crumbling remains of his ancestors, Hendrik discovered a hidden chamber. The air within was thick with the stench of decay and the lingering presence of something ancient and evil. A single brazier cast flickering shadows on the walls, revealing a scene that sent chills down his spine. Chains, heavy and rusted, hung from the walls, their ends disappearing into the darkness. In the center of the chamber stood an altar, its surface stained with what appeared to be dried blood. And upon that altar lay a book, bound in flayed human skin, its pages filled with arcane symbols and chilling illustrations. As Hendrik reached out to touch the book, a wave of nausea washed over him. The air crackled with energy, and the shadows in the chamber seemed to writhe and coil like living things. He could feel the presence of the entity, its malevolence palpable in the suffocating air. The Pact, sealed in blood, had bound the executioners of Skara to the entity's will for generations. Armed with the knowledge of his family's dark legacy, Hendrik knew what he had to do. He would break the curse, even if it meant sacrificing his own life. He would confront the entity, challenge its hold over Skara, and free his family from its grasp. He emerged from the crypt, the weight of generations lifted from his shoulders. The world seemed different, the colors more vibrant, the air less oppressive. He could feel the entity's gaze upon him, its anger palpable, but he refused to be cowed. He gathered the townsfolk, sharing with them the truth of the curse that had plagued them for so long. He spoke of the entity's manipulation, of the executions orchestrated to feed its hunger, and he rallied them to his cause, urging them to stand with him against the darkness that threatened to consume them. Together, they devised a plan, a desperate gamble to challenge the entity and sever its hold over Skara. The final confrontation took place on the night of the winter solstice, the longest night of the year, when the veil between the worlds was at its thinnest. The townsfolk gathered in the town square, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of torches. The air crackled with anticipation and fear, the silence broken only by the beating of their hearts. Hendrik, armed with the knowledge gleaned from his family's past and the unwavering support of the townsfolk, stood ready to face his destiny. He called upon the spirits of his ancestors, begging for their forgiveness and their strength. And as the clock struck midnight, he unleashed the power that had been dormant within him for generations. The entity, sensing a threat to its dominion, rose to confront the challenge. It manifested as a swirling vortex of darkness, its eyes burning with malevolent fury. A battle ensued, a clash of light and darkness, of hope and despair. The entity, fueled by centuries of suffering, was a formidable opponent, but Hendrik, empowered by the love for his town and the sacrifices of his ancestors, fought with a ferocity he never knew he possessed. And as the first rays of dawn pierced the darkness, Hendrik delivered the final blow, shattering the entity's hold over Skara forever.